It's over. The pandemic is over. Joe Biden said the pandemic is over. Well, that's it. That's all that matters. Weird, though. There's still an ongoing class action lawsuit against the military because they're trying to mandate vaccines. There's still an active state of emergency, an executive order that was put in place by Donald Trump. So what is Joe Biden doing here? Well, the president gave an interview on CBS's 60 Minutes. Now, I don't know exactly when the interview took place, but it didn't take place just the other day. So in the past several days, week, or however long, Joe Biden knew and was saying the pandemic is over. Now, question is, why isn't the government responding in such a way? Well, I'll tell you this. There's a tweet out from Jack Posobiec. He says every service member needs to file lawsuits right now. And I'll go one step further, or maybe this was the point. Anyone being required to get a vaccine for their job or anything like that related to the pandemic, Biden said it is over. The funny thing is, there's a lot of stories coming out based on this interview that Joe Biden gave, and I can't cover every single thing he said because it's kind of nuts. But one of the things he did say was that the U.S. would intervene in Taiwan. Now, I'm not going to get into all the Taiwan stuff in this segment, but this is important. He said we would intervene. We would defend Taiwan. And Scott Pelley is like, whoa. I think it was Scott Pelley, by the way. He's like, whoa, are you saying U.S. troops will defend this island? He goes, yep. The White House immediately comes out and says our policy has not changed and this is not true. Dude, at this point, I don't care about what the White House thinks. The president made a statement. Shut your mouths. Is Joe Biden a child? Can he not speak for his own policies? It's laughable. So here's what's happening now. It's basically the same thing. Biden's word is as good as dog crap because he can come out and say, quite literally, I'm the president and this is what we're doing. And then the White House goes, nah. So who's saying that? Who at the White House, who in the administration is going, meh. If Joe Biden says the pandemic is over, well then, gosh darn it, the pandemic is over. Here's the video. Let's get it. Let's play it.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
The president said it. All right, everybody take off your masks. The pandemic is over. Oh, so universal mail-in voting. Let's put an end to that. You know, that one's out. We don't need that anymore. We don't need remote, absentee, early, all that stuff. It should go back to the way things were. It was an emergency, an extraordinary moment. We understand that we all came together over the past couple of years because there was a pandemic. But as the president has stated now, it's over. So please tell all of your jobs. Tell all of your jobs. And I'll tell you this. If you have a company that's giving you the business or enacting some kind of policy based on this, you can walk in right now and say, there you go. The pandemic is over. And if they try to give you the business, you can say, I will sue you because the president has stated pandemic's over. In fact, I got to be honest, not even that. I think everybody should sue the government. I'll talk to my lawyer. I'll see what's going on because they still have an active emergency in place. And if the president is going to come out and say this with an active emergency, granting the government rights to bypass the law, that's what it does. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, we got a problem there. Joe Biden is operating under Donald Trump's emergency declaration. But if he's saying it's over, it's time to stop, right? CNN reports President Joe Biden said he believes the COVID-19 pandemic is over. He believes? No, he said the pandemic is over. Look at this. Oh, these scumbags over at CNN. He believes the pandemic is over. He said the pandemic is over, but, we still got some problems. Okay. Look at this. President Joe Biden said he believes the COVID-19 pandemic is, quote unquote, over in an appearance on CBS's 60 Minutes. They put over in quotes, but acknowledged the U.S. still has a problem with the virus that has killed more than 1 million Americans. The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. The U.S. government still designates COVID-19 a public health emergency, and the World Health Organization says it remains a public health emergency of international concern. But the president's comments follow other hopeful comments from global health leaders. Oh, you just love it when CNN comes in and takes a crap right all over the floor and just barfs everywhere. And then this is garbage. Look how they're framing everything. Hopeful comments. The president stated on one of the most prominent news programs in this country, the pandemic is over. But the pandemic is over. Shut your mouths, CNN. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, director of the World Health Organization, said in a news briefing last week that the end of COVID-19 pandemic was in sight and that the world has never been in a better position to end the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, last week, the number of weekly reported deaths from COVID-19 was the lowest since March 2020. We have never been in a better position to end the pandemic. We're not there yet, but the end is in sight. So who is Joe Biden? Who is Joe Biden if he is not the man who can end this? I bring you now to the current list of emergencies we have here. March 13th, 2020, a current emergency enacted under Donald Trump. Declaring a national emergency concerning the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19 outbreak, Proclamation 9994. On March 13th, 2020, President Donald Trump declared that he would give the states and territories access to up to $50 billion in federal funds to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes the ability to waive laws to enable telehealth. Stated by President Trump, quote, it gives remote doctors visits and hospital check-ins. The power to waive certain federal license requirements so the doctors from other states can provide services in states with the greatest need. End it. It's done. Joe Biden should not have the authority to keep this running. The government should not be allowed to keep this running when the new president says it is over. Now, the argument, I suppose, is they can come out and say, no, but the pandemic is over. Yes, but there's still an emergency, right? Biden said we're still dealing with things. So hold on there a minute. The purpose of it was to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. If there is no longer a pandemic, then certainly we are done. Nicole Safier, MD, says Biden said he believes the COVID-19 pandemic is over during a 60 Minutes interview. Yeah, that's grabbing it from CNN. Biden he was quoted as saying, the pandemic is over. We've still got some problems. Stop you right there. But Nicole goes on to say, any remaining mask and vaccine mandates should be null and void immediately. Future vaccines, treatments, tests should undergo complete FDA review and not expedited under EUA. So go to an airport, go to a cafe, go to a restaurant, go wherever where they're being mandated by government to enforce any of these policies. And then that should grant you standing, I suppose. I went to, it was a while ago, Central West Virginia, went to a train station and they had a mask mandate in place. This was around the time all of the mask mandates had been ended. So no more masks anywhere. But the federal government still said, nope, we still do it. Okay, well now let's hear it in court. Let's hear the statement in court. Thomas Massie says, if the pandemic is over, as Biden says, then all of the president's emergency powers predicated on a pandemic, all COVID vax mandates, the emergency powers of every governor, emergency use authorizations, and the PREP Act should all be voided tomorrow. And that means there are still many vaccines that are operating under EUA. But they should all be voided immediately. I completely agree with Rep. Thomas Massie. He is correct. Jonathan Reiner, here we go, is another doctor. He has a different view. We have this from CBS Mornings, September 16th. So this is before Biden made his declaration. Quote, I do think we are at the end of the pandemic, but we are not over COVID-19. Dr. David Agus says now is the time to adjust to living with the virus, but adds that testing, taking advantage of Paxlovid, and watching out for symptoms are key. Jonathan Reiner says, I don't understand how 3,000 COVID deaths per week is consistent with being at the end of the pandemic. Seems like we're adjusting to dying with the virus. We've become death blind. Oh, whoa. Jonathan, you said something really interesting there. Let me break this down for the average person. He says 3,000 COVID deaths per week. What does that mean? He says dying with the virus. You see? Now, this is important. He didn't say dying from the virus. And there it is. In many circumstances, they were saying that we had, X many COVID deaths, but a COVID death was dying with the virus, not dying from the virus. You see there's a distinction. There was a viral video out of Illinois where like the chief medical officer or whatever for the state, whatever it's called, administrator, said that if you die from any cause and you do have COVID, they will mark down dying with COVID. People then misconstrue that dying with COVID means COVID killed you. It did not. Now, I don't know what he's trying to imply here. Maybe he's trying to imply that COVID is killing people, or maybe he is correctly stating that people who die with the virus will be marked down as a COVID death. But that means like some dude who trips and falls into the Grand Canyon and dies from blunt force trauma. They then, he had COVID, So is that it then? Here we go. Politico. The pandemic changed how we vote. These states are making the changes permanent. Permanent, huh? And that's the game, and there it is. So even though the pandemic is over, on 6/21/2021, they moved to make it permanent. Many of these jurisdictions did. They took advantage of the crisis to overhaul our entire electoral system. A handful of states are locking in voting rights expansion. Okay, I'm not playing this game. I'm going to play a different game. It's going to be called, I'm going to fix these articles in real time for you. A handful of states are locking in lax voter security policies that they piloted in 2020, extending early voting and absentee balloting programs, even as other states add restrictions to voting. Whoa. Let's try that again. A handful of states are locking in the reduction in security over our voting and violation of our Constitution. They're going to say extending early voting and absentee ballot programs, even as other states add security and reaffirm the constitutional limits to our voting system. That is to say, the Constitution prescribes a voting day, not a voting month. That's very important. Now, under the emergency, these rules were changed. We should have a single day for voting. That day should be a holiday. People should not have to work on Election Day. And we should not allow early and absentee ballots unless we're absolutely necessary. That is to say, I think absentee is fine if you're overseas, if you're in the military, if, a medical emergency or other circumstance arises. But if you cannot physically get up and go vote, if you cannot do it, that's the limit to which we would offer absentee ballots or things like that. Everyone else who outside of that, if you are unwilling to get up and go vote, then I don't think your vote should be in. You clearly don't care enough. And I'm saying voting day should be a holiday. You should be able to take off work with pay so you can go vote. That's my opinion. Now, I get it. There's a challenge because, with pay implies someone's got to pay your bills so that you can go vote. And that shouldn't be incumbent upon the business. And that's because the business might not be able to do it. It's like, not only are we closed on Election Day, so we don't make any money, I also got to pay out. That might be possible. Got an idea. Tax credit equal to 1 day's work for you. So let's say you make, $200 a day working your job or something like that. On tax day, you will get a single day's credit for $200 towards your income tax. A full $200 kicked right back to you as a refund. Guaranteed refund for that day. So you pay your taxes. I know a lot of libertarians don't like it, but my view is in this liberal republic where we have an income tax, whether you like it or not, we will kick back the money that was originally yours in the first place, but to accommodate for that day where you won't be working, but you will be voting. That should be the way it is. Ultimately, it means a tax reduction so that you will have money equal to that amount. I love the reaction, though. Here we go from The Guardian. Biden says COVID pandemic is over despite U.S. daily death toll in the hundreds. I love this one. I like it so much more than CNN because with CNN, they're like, Biden believes the pandemic is over, but it's not. It's like, okay. And The Guardian's like, Biden says it's over, but there's people dying. I love it. They're trying to find any way they can spin it to be like, no. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This is from the Air Force Times from 3 days ago, about 4 days ago. Air Force vaccine case will remain a class action. I think they just won. I think This class action now should amend their complaint and say Biden has declared the pandemic over. He is the commander in chief. Let it be said. Let it be done. Air Force Times says federal appellate judge has dealt another blow to the military's coronavirus vaccine mandate by allowing a high-profile class action lawsuit against the Air Force to move forward. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati opted to keep the case's class action status in an order issued September 9th. The three-judge panel also said it plans to fast-track the government's appeal of an earlier district court ruling that favored the unvetoed plaintiffs who are suing on religious freedom grounds. Well, my friends, you may now amend that complaint and say, if the pandemic is over, how do you mandate this? This is funny. Judge Raymond Kethledge's court order pushed back on the military's argument that stopping the mandate would cause irreparable harm by requiring the Department of the Air Force to retain nearly 10,000 troops who can't or aren't allowed to fully carry out their duties because they aren't vaccinated against COVID-19. Well, certainly that doesn't matter anymore. The pandemic is over. Now, look, there's a lot to break down in this interview that Joe Biden gave. He said a lot of crazy things. I think my favorite thing that he said was, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm not kidding. Biden said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Man. Joe Biden's mental acuity was challenged, and he responded by saying a bunch of incoherent rambling for the most part. He's like, well, watch me. Watch me. Look at my schedule, huh? You know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't realize the proof of the pudding was in the eating. I thought the proof was in the pudding, which is means something totally different, but sure. Yeah, this is the current state of things. So when the president comes out and garbles and rambles, and then the government doesn't respond, y'all, we got very serious problems. It's the decay. The end is nigh. Call it what you will. It was good while it lasted, I guess. You know, it's this American experiment. But I was doing some reading last night, and we made some comments on Timcast IRL. We've said things like crossing the Rubicon. And we've talked about the fall of the Roman Empire. But boy, are we conflating two completely different issues. You know, someone said, no, Tim, crossing the Rubicon didn't end Rome. It extended its life by 2 centuries. And I was like, you know what? They make a good point. We're conflating these two things. Crossing the Rubicon was the end of the Republic, not the end of the Empire. The end of the Empire was something else. This past weekend, I got to hang out in Stonewall Jackson's headquarters over in Winchester, Virginia. It wasn't his official home or anything, but it was it was where he planned things out, defending the Shenandoah. So it was just one of many locations he used. Cool to see. A lot of the original furniture. There's actually a tea kettle thing that was actually Stonewall Jackson's. It's interesting. And I brought it up because we went in the bed. I'm bringing this up because we went in the bedroom of this house. And they were explaining to me that this rolling pin for the bed. There were concerns about things that might cause illnesses or ailments. You could die. You get sick, you get typhus, you get an infection. And then he said, the guy there, he said it was really funny because they're so worried about this, but right next to the bed is the bathroom. And he's like, quite literally, chamber pots just sitting right there. It's funny. You take a dump in a pot. You don't want to walk out to the outhouse. You take a dump in a pot. Nasty. And then up on top of the shelf was water and other things for cleaning up a little bit. They sat next to their own waste, put it in a pot. Wow. The Romans had indoor plumbing. That's the point. For so long, we went without indoor plumbing. But the Roman Empire, they had indoor plumbing. When the Roman Empire fell, the technology was lost. It was lost because the economy couldn't sustain such a thing. Indoor plumbing wasn't a necessity. It was a benefit, a luxury in a certain sense. But what mattered most was getting food and resources and water to people. So when the Roman Empire falls, it shatters basically. And then you get the Romance languages, and then you get new empires bubbling up hundreds of years later. I think we're in the end of the Roman Republic era. The American Republic may be coming to an end. Someone is going to cross that Rubicon. And then we will have an empire of some sort. I don't know exactly how it'll function. But things will, I suppose, generally improve for maybe a couple more centuries. But it means there's going to be some really messed up stuff. An American empire truly declared with an autocracy. It may preserve this nation for a couple more centuries. And what happens afterwards? Maybe it won't be identical. Maybe it will be more like the fall of the Roman Empire. And I bring up that story in that house because it's just, if it does fall, you need to understand technology will be lost. Trade will end. Cameras, people probably won't make them. We don't need them, sort of. People will want stuff like that. We'll know it existed. But it'll be interesting to see nonetheless. You know, I don't know. Is it the Republic or is it the Empire? We're in the American Republic. And many people say they believe it's an empire. And they say the empires last 250 years. But the United States hasn't been an empire for 250 years, if you can even call it one now. I don't think you can. I think an empire would require an emperor. Instead, we've had an electoral system. Why would we not fall into an empirical state for 250 years? Maybe that's where we're going. We're looking at the corruptions and the failures. Maybe it was the Democrats that crossed the Rubicon. Maybe Donald Trump will cross the Rubicon. I don't know. And what I mean by that is quite literally establishing an autocracy. We say crossing the Rubicon to mean a point of no return. But maybe there will be a literal crossing of the Rubicon. We'll see. I'll leave it there. We got a lot more to talk about in the 60 minutes interview that Biden gave. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.